Hello and welcome to the Ivy League Sisters podcast, where you're invited into the world of high-achieving women who earned that coveted Ivy League degree and now are here to get real and honest about the pressures and expectations that come with claiming this achievement. I'm Lauren Beluchian, and I'm the founder of Ivy League Sisters, a mentorship community where intellectually curious and slightly rebellious women band together to support each other through the personal and professional seasons of life. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of perfection to reveal the authentic, often messy, and always inspiring stories of women who have been where you are. So whether you're an Ivy League graduate, a high achiever in any field, or simply someone striving to live a more authentic life, the Ivy League Sisters podcast is a place where you can realize you're not alone. And if you're new here, like and follow this podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversations. I thought we'd start with dedicating this podcast to all the tired women out there. I think this idea of the tired woman is something that a lot of women listening can relate to.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant.
I mean, I would just love to start with having you share like all the different worlds that you hold together.
Oh, interesting question. Okay. So I'm at work right now. I'm a psychiatrist working in rehab, pretty much full time. Right now, my colleague of 32 years is on medical leave. So I'm the lead psychiatrist here at the moment. So
You're doing double duty.
So I'm navigating that. I'm a single mom, and my two girls are teenagers, 13 and 17, and they are still on summer vacation, but heading back to school this fall, and both will be applying to the next thing, which is college and high school. A lot of my energy is being for them, there for them, and investing a lot in their development.
I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I think it's just such something that standing at the top of the mountain and putting your arms out wide is important, is the fact that at 49 years old, Patricia, you decided, I'm going to have some kids. I'm choosing to do it.
No problem. Well, I actually started the process much earlier, in my early 40s, but as these infertility journeys go, it took quite a little bit longer than I anticipated. But despite it taking till I was 49 to get pregnant, I never doubted that I would find a way to do it. That's the determination part, despite what anybody else might say before or after. I still have friends commenting about how they thought I was completely crazy at the time, and they still think I'm crazy, but I do have that inner confidence in myself and determination. And I know that if there's something I really want, I will find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's not in a loud, aggressive way. It's in a quiet, hell-bent internal way.
Mm-hmm. When you say those words, interesting, you just mentioned, other people thought it was crazy at the time, still think part of you is crazy. And this is such a reminder of, though, people's lens and perspective that they put on and project onto others.
Mm-hmm.
One woman thinks, or person, I don't know if it's a woman, man or woman, thinks it's crazy. I'm hearing the story and I'm thinking, badass. Like, who's this woman? Right? Like, to me, it is such an inspiration of trust, of thinking big, of like it. I see it from such a different lens of the values that it brings forward.
And I've appreciated hearing that from you over time, because I think when I first met you, I still had, despite my privately feeling like I was very strong and determined, socially, I felt unsure and self-conscious about being older and being a mom. And I wasn't really owning my strength socially about it, even though internally and privately in my own corner, I was like, yeah, no problem. What's your problem? So
I remember that. So I remember we had a whole conversation, and probably it came out 30 minutes in. It was like this later thing that sort of got teased out. And I just remember like almost hitting pause on our conversation and saying, wait, rewind. What did you just say? And it was kind of like this like timid, yeah, self-conscious, whatever sort of inner judgment critic that you put on yourself of like, I'm old, I did it without a partner. I don't know. I'm a loser for doing this. I was like, this is incredible. This is like your story that can be such a guidepost for women in different ways, shapes, and forms, not just with fertility, but with anything that we're thinking is, something inherently like deep in us that we want to do, but we fear what others how they might perceive it.
Right. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about where this sort of determination and self-confidence came from. I think it's passed down from my mom and my grandma, because my mom was one to always think outside the box, and my grandmother lived till she was 99. So I think I also had the perspective of, well, chances are I have more longevity than most people. So this is not completely foolish, and my mom lived till she was 90. So I was like, it's not like I have a family history of people dying when they're 49. So there was both the genetic sort of longevity piece, and also the theme from my grandmother, who always told my mother she was going to be a career girl, which was a big thing then. And then my mother always emphasizing career and independence. It all translated into a sense of independence and internal self-confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds like your mom and your grandmother were so ahead of their times.
very much so. Yeah.
Real pioneers, trailblazers, and
Mhm.
just passing that gift down to you, which is huge. You went to Dartmouth you graduated in 80. So what year,
Yeah.
how long Dartmouth had women, how long?
Uh, I I think we were the fourth class of
Yeah, I think so.
fully
Enrollment.
matriculated women. I think it might have started a few women before, but officially, my understanding was we're the fourth class. And my own little anecdote about that is that I came from a public school, very good public high school in Cleveland. I didn't even talk to the guidance counselor because they sent everybody to Miami of Ohio. I grabbed a college catalog that was outdated, and I looked at the list of most competitive schools and wrote down the list. And Dartmouth wasn't on the list because it was an old thing. And I made like tour of the East Coast. And a friend of mine ran into me in Middlebury and said, you should check out Dartmouth. It's great. So we just made a detour there. And yeah, he said, yeah, it's co-ed now. And I wandered in, it just was like a Saturday, and I wandered into an administration building and found the dean of women and chatted with her a little bit about it and loved it, and decided to apply in rebellion of my family tradition, which was Oberlin, where my grandmother, my dad, and my brother went. I was rebelling by going to Oberlin. Going to Dartmouth. So I was totally unprepared for what the scene was there. No
Oh,
idea.
okay. What did you say? What does that mean, unprepared? What was the scene there?
Well, my paradigm of college was my dad and my brother, which was Oberlin, which is very liberal, very much individual, breaking tradition. So I arrived at Dartmouth, I didn't realize that it had all these strong traditions, strong male traditions. And there was a lot of conformity, not a lot of questioning of things. And I just thought it was bizarre. I just thought it was bizarre that men there were used to road tripping to Wellesley and Mount Holyoke. They weren't used to having relationships with women on campus. It's almost like they didn't know how to talk to women. And they had these stupid, like, rating you with a number when you come out of a convocation, or in the fourth dining room, the football team would rate women my freshman fall. And I was like, I just thought it was so fucking bizarre.
That's
And ridiculous, and
Now,
also
did other
ridiculous.
women think that, or like, what do you think did women really all, like, for the most part, thinking this is messed up, or were some just like along for the ride and thinking this is?
Most people were most of the women did not question it, which I also thought was bizarre. So on my freshman trip, we sang Men of Dartmouth. And I was like, I said to the leader, since when do we sing Men of Dartmouth? He goes, well, the students voted on it. They didn't want to change it. Like, end of conversation. I was like, no conversation. And there were two other women in the group. I don't think they even made a peep. And I remember there weren't many discussions with women being unhappy about the way things were. I remember the main thing I remember was women saying, well, if you want to have a profession in the men's world, this is how you figure it out. You, like, jump in with the men and be in a man's world, and you learn how to navigate a man's world.
Mm.
And I thought that was ridiculous. I was like, I don't want to just become like a man, like, or have to, I just thought that it seemed very narrow-minded to me. And the whole fraternity system, I thought that was fucked up. I mean, it was fun. It was fun, and it would be fun to have a small piece of that available, but to have it be the predominant thing where you get drunk and you don't really know how to talk to people or socialize. And then we didn't have sororities. My freshman spring, the women decided to form a sorority, which I thought was the stupidest thing in the world, because it's going to reinforce the fraternity system. Instead of saying we need to find another way to socialize, not reinforce this dysfunctional system. That was my opinion.
Oh, you were so ahead of your time, because I went to Dartmouth. It was 26 years later. The Greek system was in full force. I mean, that was central, where you socialized. And I I wasn't questioning anything. It's so interesting because it's taken me years away from that scene to now look back and think what you were thinking at the time. This is messed up. I'm standing outside in the cold for hours waiting for someone to just let me in to a fraternity so that I can sit on the sidelines and watch men playing beer pong and hope that, someone pays attention to me or invites me into a game or whatever.
Or
Um,
ignores me.
or ignores me. Yeah. So, and I don't know what the scene is like now, but I do know that a lot of classmates of mine have shared how that system has caused alcoholism, huge amounts of social anxiety because of dependency on substances to socialize, to your point. um, you work in the mental health space. So what are you seeing in terms of mental health and trends and what's happening?
Well, that's a big question, boy. I think with COVID, the isolation was devastating. And I feel like people are still recovering from all that trauma in a lot of ways. And I feel like the United States in particular has a much bigger need for community than we have right now. Other countries have their culture and their ethnicity and, sort of more clear communities. And I think, especially because the patients I see in the hospital who have come from ethnic backgrounds, and the tradition is to, maybe all live in the same house and come to the hospital. I feel like those families support each other in a way that um, many other many others of us not from that kind of background, it takes more work to find your community. And I feel like everybody's hungering for community and connection.
Oh yeah, I've seen the same thing. And to your point, I think a lot of, yeah, these minorities that come from these cultures that are like their cities and towns and villages are built around community and centralizing times to gather and weekends and festivals and music and all of that. And we lack that here. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love the hospital where I work, because it's a rehab hospital, inpatient acute for physical issues. And I think the people that are drawn to this work have a big heart and a lot of compassion, and um, have a value of connecting with people, with patients and other staff. So I value that value in this community. And I think some of the more competitive environments may not have that as the primary value, you know,
Yeah.
with competition and achievement, and um, sort of not as much of the big picture. I know I'm making a generalization, but um, when I think I'm veering off into the competitive thing, because I've been
Yeah.
thinking about it a lot in terms of how competitive I was earlier in my life, and how competition and drive can work in certain situations to, like, get me from high school to an Ivy League school in very structured, sort of linear way, but it's gotten in my way as my life gets more, things aren't so linear and clear cut, and I've had to actually set aside, and I'm still working on setting aside in my competitiveness, because it cuts me off from other people, you know?
I
Yeah.
do know. I feel that
Yeah.
as well. I very much relate. And I think a lot of high achievers, people that have been on a certain track of what's expected of us and what success looks like, and been in worlds of high competition, and not just even in the Ivies. I think as a society,
Mhm.
America, like I think other countries look at us and they're like,
Yeah.
gosh, they are just more consumerism, be
Mhm.
better, have more.
Mhm.
And I agree, it really does cut us off from this more it's just a softer place, it's a more welcoming space, it's more spaciousness of connection and community. And we have to be mindful of it because
Yeah. More of a value of time,
mm,
connection, not so much material stuff.
and it's hard when it's in your face so much in different
Yes.
where you go.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I can feel my body get tense sometimes when I'm at my kids' sporting activities and the parents are all, what is your kid into? And what is your kid doing? And activities and this, and, you know, thinking about, I'm sure with you, the college stuff, when parents start to get all stressed about that, it naturally brings up in us, like, oh, am I doing enough? Oh, wait, like that whole inner dialogue of the pressure to do more, and really pulling that back and thinking for what and for why.
Yeah. I think in this college process, which we're just sort of starting the actual reality of it, um, my hope is to stay focused on what my values are with my daughter.
I could see you, Patricia, getting your competitive spirit going and be like, oh, wait, hold on. Let me just.
Yeah. No, I could very much, I've seen myself at certain times been like, well, this is what I would have done, or this is what I did, and I have to set aside myself. And I'm going to have to really work on this going forward, setting aside that competitive bullshit in a way to supporting her to figure out what she wants and, you know, challenge herself, but not sort of go for prestige for the sake of prestige. But as I did for high school, it was in the middle of COVID, and I was very intentional about trying to set aside the goal of the prestigious name stuff in the pursuit of a place where she could be happy and thrive. And she landed in a school that turned out to be really great for her, but it took like a year or two of her being there for me to continually set aside my prestige mindedness.
Yeah.
So,
but you know what, Patricia, that is conscious parenting right there.
mm-hmm.
And that is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. It's not. It's like we're fighting against the tide.
Yes. There's definitely a shadow side to the Ivy League, the coveted Ivy League degree, right? So on the one hand, it can very much feed the ego and the credibility and the door openers. And it's a little badge that right away someone might say, oh, smart person. Oh. And yet it stems from a level of elitism. I mean, our roots, right, of Ivy League pedigree comes from elitism, privilege. And I know that the tides are changing and these universities are trying to find ways to make it much more equal and for all different racial backgrounds, socioeconomic. It's just something I think that's, if we don't talk about it, we're kind of ignoring the elephant in the space. And I think that's something that just keeps coming up even within like Ivy League sisters community, is this like desire for diversity and inclusion. And then also this reality of like false, humble vibe that's like, I'm not going to, especially for women, it's like, I'm not going to mention, I want to kind of mask that I went to this school. I want to not boast about it because I don't want to be that we all know that obnoxious person that's like, you know, wearing a bumper sticker on their head where they went to school. But at the same token, it's like not making it such a thing.
Mm-hmm. It's just a part of one of many things that are a part of you,
Yeah.
you know?
But I was asking myself this question of, Lauren, let's just play in your mind that you went to a state school and that's what's on your LinkedIn and that's who you are. How do you feel now? And I was like, oh no, I'm not. Now people are going to, I'm the exact same person, right? I'm the exact same person. It's literally just a piece of paper and a credential.
Mm-hmm.
And even as I'm saying this now, I can feel this like, well, then are people going to think I'm smart? And am I as valid? And am I as credible?
I had my sort of own humbling experience of after college. I did my pre-med after college. I came back to Ohio for med school in Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, College of Medicine, really great school actually. And there was a sprinkling of Ivy Leaguers there. And I was such an Ivy League snob when I arrived. And then there are all these local kids who went to Xavier or UC or just the local kids from Cincinnati. And they ran circles around me academically the first year or two. They ran circles around me and I was like barely making it. And they're working hard and they're not like big fanfare. And I was like, I got to come off my high horse. Just come off my high horse and acknowledge that Ivy League is not the be all and end all. You know, it is not at all.
I know.
I know one person said going to a prestigious college just means that you were smart and did well in high school. I think the best part of going to Dartmouth in particular was really the community post college. I've enjoyed my reunions. Whenever you meet somebody from Dartmouth, there's this kind of connection about all the, idiosyncrasies of our college. And then I found my way to you and all our work that we've done together, which has been so transformative for me. Even though I'd done, psychotherapy and medication and out the wazoo, coming from Dartmouth to find my way to you and our sisters group has been life-changing because we're all there to start to speak. And the goal is to be authentic, not competing. That, well, it's been transformational. So, I mean, in an ideal world, you could have that kind of prestigious institution where you could somehow combine that value of authenticity with, really strong intentionality and, I don't know, unpretentiousness. Can you
I think that's what we're
imagine?
craving. I mean, yeah, that exactly.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to speak into before you stepped into more community and connection, and we got gathering, like
Mhm.
that part of yourself that was more skeptical or cynical or whatever word you put around it.
Mhm.
How would you describe yourself? And because I think there's a lot of women that you're not alone in that at all, at all.
I think I've been a very judgmental person, even though I think of myself as very compassionate and accepting. Despite that wish, I've had a lot of voices in my head of judgment and criticism of other people and myself. So that cut me off from people a lot, and distanced me from people and making assumptions about who they are. And
So how did that serve you? Because we only do things that like, why were you doing that? And what was that helping for you?
I think the judgment it was absorbed from my parents, who are very critical people. So I think a lot of it was just the family way. um, how did it serve me? Oh, it served me in making me feel superior to other people. Yeah, I was above it all. I didn't have to do X, Y, and Z. I was above it all, which is so ridiculous. So it served me in feeling superior, and it was familiar. I think those are the two main things.
That's such a refreshing, honest answer. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it's
Because
kind of
we can
refreshing
sense
to
when
be able to
we're
look at.
falling into that, right? Like we can sense when we see it in ourselves or we see it in another person too, of like, ooh,
It's
back to the high horse.
easy. Yeah, it's easy to be judgmental, just cut other people down, and it's just an easy thing to do. Um, it's
It's
like
also a lazy thing to do. Like think about, again, conscious parenting or conscious being. It's lazy to be judgmental because you're just not staying aware of the dialogue in your head. You're literally letting the mind script run the view
it
of everything.
it's sort of an impulsive thing. It's almost like impulsive shopping, or a quick fix. If you're frustrated about something, you can just dump on somebody else and you feel better for like 10 seconds. Instead of building on something that's more foundational bedrock strength, that's gonna be a better human being.
How do you connect your superiority, your ego mind? How does that get sort of turned off when you lean into your value of faith? Because I know you have a strong value of faith.
My value of faith, I think first when I think of it, I think of being in church and having the big picture of life and the world. So a sense of, and also being around the communion rail as a group, kneeling. I feel like my faith has provided a framework of humility and fellowship and being in an even level with everyone, not this hierarchical bullshit that can get stirred up in my head. It's just a sense of being a child of God, in the sense of, we're all human, we're all fallible, we're all doing the best we can. And I think having just a perspective of us as being humans together on this earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Mistakes and flaws and all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've loved my particular church community, because when the church I grew up with had a lot of the appearance and competition and that stuff. But the community I've found in Brookline has been very much about, it was the first place I could sort of be angry in church and be human and not know what I thought, not know what I believed, and just to be who I am. So that shift from this whatever thing idea I had growing up that was very external, to being allowed to be angry, be allowed to ask questions.
I feel
Those
like
were, yeah.
women in anger is usually not very well received. It's like we are not taught that like, I think that's a lot of the equivalent to like men showing sadness. Like, don't
Yes.
do that. Women showing anger is like, you're hysterical, you're crazy, you've lost your mind.
Well,
And
especially, being angry in church in particular, where uh
what does that look like? How do you express anger in church?
well, I think it's more just, it can just be saying I'm angry, or I'm pissed, or I'm pissed that my sister died. That was the big thing. My sister died as a teenager, and there was no place in church to just say that my parents fucked up. I'm pissed at God. I'm pissed at God. There was no place to just say that. And I think later in life, as I grew and in my church, I was like, oh my God, it's okay to say you're angry at God. It's okay to say you're angry at God. Now, why did it have to be such a long journey to get to that? How much easier would my life have been if we could have just said that earlier on?
Oh yeah, like the child in me saying, I'm angry at you, God. There's this like big man looking down and he's like, did you say I'm angry? You never want to like express anger, because you'll be, in my view, it was like, I'd be punished. I'd be punished. So the fear of God expressing humanity of, this is how I'm feeling. And it's interesting because I think that stuff even translates to, at least for me, like expressing anger at a person, even like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, it's not safe to say aloud, I'm angry at you. I'm
Yeah,
pissed.
I actually called a family meeting in my 30s to tell my parents I thought they fucked up. They did not want to hear that. Nope. Nope. My dad said, I said, well, what did you think, Dad? He goes, it was most unpleasant, and I don't think we shall do it again. Okay.
Ooh. How did that feel for you, using your voice?
It was good. It was good for my older brother, who cried his heart out for the first time and the most heart-wrenching tears I've seen in my life from him. He needed that. He needed that.
Okay, this leads me to you being a voice in our space and what we dubbed as voice of God, but being a voice
Yeah.
and using that voice, being the mouthpiece for others who might be
Yeah.
in silence. What's that been like for you?
Revolutionary. As you know, at the beginning of our 7x7, we had that Boxer app, which is brilliant. I set my intention to practice saying an intention every day, because I have struggled so much to speak up in my life, in my work, in social situations. I was like bringing that determination to, okay, using my voice is a project here. So I did it every day, and the group heard me, and people supported me, and there was no judgment. And it was like this whole new experience. Nobody shutting me down. Nobody
Right.
saying, nobody's criticizing me, just support, you keep going. It was like, oh my God.
Mm.
And, as our group would tease me, it's like, look out now, Patricia, like, look out now. Because it got to be easier and easier. And
It is
I
like a
thought,
muscle.
yes, it is. Yeah. So it's been powerful. It's been powerful. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it.
We have appreciated it and we have gained so much as a result of it. And it's been such a gift of inspiration to remind all of us when one woman speaks, she can speak for the collective in many ways. And it may not even be the exact words and what she's saying. It's like, it's giving even that permission to use our voice and to remind ourselves that even when we use our voice, we may be judged and we may be criticized, and not everyone's
Mhm.
going to agree. But if we always censor and we're always trying to only speak on making sure everyone's going to validate us and approve of us, I think we lose that touch of our own authenticity. We're abandoning ourselves.
But I think the combination of being heard by the group
Mhm.
and supported, and then seeing the ripple effect of other people starting to speak up was just so gratifying. It's such a joy to see other people start to know that you can impact other people to use their voices.
Well, for generations and hundreds of years, women have been silenced because it's been passed down that, I mean, using our voice has truly been a threat of persecution, of, all sorts of terrible stoning, raping, killing. I mean, it's just brutal, but that's in our psyche. That's a wound that's been passed down psychologically. And
Hmm.
so I think at a very subconscious level, women are like, it's safer to be silent.
So I was fortunate in high school to have, this story, but there weren't any women priests in my church. And then there was 11 women are irregularly ordained.
So when you were a kid, did you think that was strange that there were no, did that actually stand out to you?
I didn't really think about it. I know when I was in seventh grade, I could be an acolyte and carry a candle, but not a cross. But I really didn't think about it. I didn't really think about it. But once these women priests showed up and started becoming a part of the Episcopal Church, now it's like women are everywhere as priests. And it's very different to have a woman priest than a male priest. That's, yeah.
In your view, what's the difference? What do you see as a difference?
I I just enjoyed the women that I've come to know, and there's a lot of joy. There's a lot of, it just feels like it's not as it's not a distance that I
Mm.
might feel with some male priests. I mean,
A
this is not
warmth?
a warmth, a nurturing, simpatico.
Mm.
Um, you can be you're part of this.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I don't know, more connected. Yeah.
I feel that like it's one of those really interesting things. I had a sense of what you were describing, but and sometimes we try to put it into words. It loses the like it's a feeling we have, right? And so it's part of it's like the great mystery of our divine feminine, which is just more like elusive and it's hard to grasp, right? Divine masculine is more a little bit more standoff and a little bit more structured and a little bit more rigid, where and when I'm using these terms, divine masculine or divine feminine. It's not about the gender. It's really about the qualities of these different, energies that we carry.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot softer energy, softer, powerful, softer, reassuring, loving,
it's such a different way of leading too. Like when you were earlier in this conversation talking about the women that you went to school with at Dartmouth that kind of felt like, well, this is the man's world and this is how to live in the man's world. It's like, that's so stifling. And that is a way that we are still in 2024 trying to shift and change some of that paradigm. But it has been, I think, traditionally us trying to fit ourselves into that model. And what I'm hearing from you is with these priestesses, they weren't trying to be a male
no,
priestess. They were
no.
really embodying these qualities that, like when you just said, I think you said calm and powerful, and that's,
Soft, yeah.
what was it what you said?
Soft?
Soft, you did. So soft and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
We often don't think of those two together, but really when we think of this like softer confidence that doesn't have to be loud and in your face and big and strong, it's like there's a power in that presence.
And I think as you were talking about as you were talking, I was thinking of the contrast between my classmates and some of the young women professors at Dartmouth. The young women professors in that French department in Complet were like these strong, cool, hip women, smart, confident. That's why French was a French major, because I wanted to hang out with them. They were not trying to be this macho conformity kind of business macho thing. They were very much themselves and smart and, intellectual and wore cool clothes and all that. That was my role model. Those
To
women,
see it
I will never.
modeled,
Yeah.
see it modeled that way is just, it's such an energizing like breath of air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it can be done. Oh, that's how it looks. Because when we see it done a certain way, we're like, that's what I'm drawn to. Wait, yeah, more of that.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I tried, really wanted to be able to fit in a man's world and really wanted to I wanted to conform because I thought that was the only way to succeed. But like, it just wasn't, I didn't ever feel like myself. I always felt like I was trying to laugh with the jokes and let things roll off me and show no sensitivity and be the cool girl that could just hang with them. But when I really step back, that's just like such a
A compromise. Yeah.
such a compromise. And I think a lot of women believe that that's how it has to look. Some women, I think naturally that fits them and it feels really good. And you can see it when those women are like, oh, they're not trying. Like this is just more of a natural state of being. But I think when we don't feel that and not as much alignment and we try to do it, I think that's what's creating a lot of disconnection from self and not doing our evolution as a human being race any good.
Yeah. Again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about finishing my training at the Brigham, where there's a lot of that kind of macho, very macho, prestige stuff. And then when I got this job here at the rehab, I was the first woman to be a psychiatrist here, and I've been here forever. But there are a ton of women on staff here. Eventually, there are more female physicians. And I have so appreciated being in a professional community where being a woman physician I felt very supported over time. It's gotten better and better. I know at first it was still some of that, like the men got better treatment, but the men doctors, that's a whole other conversation. But I feel like within the medical community, this has been a really a place for me to operate or practice in a much fuller way than I did in that Harvard, male-oriented, high pressure kind of vibe. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful that you're doing your thing. What you do for work, I feel is a big blend of your more like logical, brainy part of yourself, but combined and balancing it with your more intuitive and softer, and the power of that presence between the two is what makes you such a unique gift.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to close these sessions, these spotlights, with a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
So there are just 3 of them, and I invite you to use your voice of God to speak what needs to be spoken and trust without editing. People pleasing, perfectionism, or imposter syndrome. Which do you find is the biggest thorn on your rose bush?
People pleasing.
Okay, next one is, what's a lie that you still tell yourself?
A lie that I still tell myself. I probably still tell myself that I'm above it all in some way. Like, get off your friggin' high horse, honey.
You know what's so great though, Patricia, when we can laugh at ourselves with this stuff and we can at least bring humor to it, it diffuses the hold it has on us, because we are human, we have these egos. And so the fact that like we make space, I think, in our communities, and we have a trust with each other of like, if I felt like you were doing that, I'm like, Patricia, you're on the high horse. You're like, oh, I am.
I hate that.
Same here. Like, if you're like, Lauren, you're kind of being like that elitist biatch, like I would be like, not take it to heart in a bad way. It's like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. Let's laugh about it.
Yeah.
So refreshing. And
Yeah.
refreshing to allow that our humanity does sometimes creep up and show up, and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
bad person. Okay, last question. What is something that feels a little edgy in your life right now that you're willing to use your voice and verbalize in this moment?
What feels a little edgy in this moment? Oof. For me, the edgy thing is letting go of a lot of things, and how I think they're going to go, and just letting the flow. I feel like I'm in this state of flow where things are flowing in different directions and I don't know exactly where we're going to go, but I'm not trying to control or, be upset when they don't go my way. I have just this sense like things are going in different directions, new directions, and it's just a different gear that I'm in right now. So
something I just want to offer you that was coming through me as you were saying that is to trust in that flow and that difference right now, because when Patricia gets that deep hit gut of determination, everything aligns and it becomes clear and it happens. So you'll know when you need to know, when there's something that needs to be done, like going to the Paris Olympics at the last minute.
So fun.
Whenever you've had that ping, you clarify, you align, and you make it happen.
Right. Yep.
And it probably feels a little unsafe when you don't have it, because you're like, oh, when I have it, it's easy.
Clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for playing with me. Thanks for coming in and doing this time together. I always learn something new. I always learn something new about you and from you, from wisdom. And it's just that gift of connection. Okay. I love you.
Love you.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to be in contact with our community, you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Ivy League Sisters, or visit our website at ivyleaguesisters.com. And if you found this conversation valuable, I invite you to share it with another woman, another friend, another loved one, because it's through our sharing that we inspire one another and deepen our connections. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. We are in this crazy thing called life together.